Hey, it's Shay. I'm trans and I craft, and welcome back to my channel. I am getting married. In fact, by the time this video goes up, I might already be married. And I thought today would be a really good opportunity to talk to you about the process of being trans and working on planning a wedding. Trans Day of Visibility just recently passed. And I think a lot about who we're being visible for. Because I spent a lot of time thinking that I have to be visible for the cis-het people or the cis-LGB plus people in order to prove that I have worth as a human being and I deserve to be respected. But I would much rather be visible for other trans people. So this video is primarily for trans people who are getting married, planning a wedding, and especially trans people who are gender nonconforming or who just don't really pass. Most of my wedding process over the past few years, I really didn't pass, and that caused a lot of stress. This video is going to be a little bit different than my past videos that were kind of knit-alongs, primarily because I might have bitten off more than I can chew. I'm trying to make some socks, and they are kicking my ass. It's bad. But I don't really have a project to be working on at the moment because I don't trust myself on double-pointed needles to be working on those socks and talking to you at the same time. A few caveats before we jump into this. One, this is based off of my own limited personal experience. This is also based off of my experience as a trans man. I can't really speak to the experience of trans feminine people. Secondly, this is going to be based around the United States. So let's jump on in to 5 things to keep in mind when you are planning your wedding as a trans person. Number 1, change your documents early. This includes things like your birth certificate. Not every state allows you to make changes to the gender on your birth certificate, but you're really going to want to make sure for the legal end that you have changed your name if that's something that you're interested in, as well as changed your name again on your birth certificate. I know a lot of trans people who have changed all of their documents except for their birth certificates, but I applied for a marriage license, and the marriage license specifically said your legal name as listed on your birth certificate. So thankfully, I had already changed my name on my birth certificate, but if that's something that you can do, do it just in case you need it. One other really important reason to change your documents, because if I hadn't changed my documents to all read male, then legally I would be listed as a wife, and that would make me super uncomfortable and really dysphoric. Number 2, lists of LGBTQ friendly does not always mean trans inclusive. One of the first things that my fiance and I did when we were looking up things like the venue or vendors was to look up LGBTQ wedding vendors and mostly this brought up things that were predominantly geared towards cisgender queer people and really not a lot of information on trans people. And when you add in factors like for myself, where for again most of this process I really didn't pass, it made me very uncomfortable having to go to all of these venues and disclose, hey, I'm trans, have you worked with trans people before? And a lot of the places, again, listed as LGBTQ friendly, would tell me, oh, we've worked with so many gay couples. That's not what I said. And obviously there's some overlap between experiences where people obviously might be queer and trans, or you might feel you actually do have a lot of shared experiences with queer people, but somebody who knows how to be an ally to cisgender LGBT plus people does not necessarily know how to be an ally to trans people. Number 3, know when to delegate. My fiance is cis, and that meant that certain things that would really make me dysphoric, I was able to delegate to her. My voice doesn't always pass on the phone. So I would ask her, hey, could you make this phone call? And if you and your fiance are both trans, see if there's somebody in your wedding party or somebody who you trust to be able to make those phone calls or take on the responsibilities that are really stressing you out. Number 4, doing things online might be your best friend. Suit shopping was super stressful. I started this process 8-9 months in advance. I went to some stores, I don't even remember at the moment. Walked in my masculine clothes, hoping to pass more, to get some measurements taken, and the person measured me, but he was also like, what are you doing here? You don't have to be here until like a month out from your wedding. What are you doing? Your measurements are not going to be accurate, which is fair, but it was mostly just this weird experience where the expectation for men is that they don't need a lot of work or assistance on their suit, and that the suit buying process is supposed to be fairly simple, which is not the case for me. I'm short. I have not been on testosterone long enough for body fat redistribution, and I had a lot of questions because this is my first time buying a suit. So it was just a really nerve-wracking process. Getting the measurements was stressful, having somebody just like measuring my body, and then to further then learn, well, you're actually doing it wrong by coming in so early, and then because you don't have to be here at this point in time, come back in 4 months, come back in 6 months, just also made me feel like I'm clearly not doing this like man thing correctly. So after a lot of months of a lot of stress, some really great trans friends recommended Studio Suits. I'll post a link to their website down below. And Studio Suits is made to measure. So this cut out everything where I did not have to talk to anyone in person. I could just put in my measurements and be done with the process, ships to my door. And lastly, number 5, you don't have to settle. This was one of the biggest things I had to learn, especially early on, because my fiance and I would tour venues and I would be really uncomfortable and not have a good experience. And we would leave and I would look at her and say, that wasn't that bad. Why don't we go with them? We're probably not going to find anything better. And this reasonably caused some stress between us. I was not clearly communicating that my experience was, wow, this sucks. But my response to that was, well, I expect it to suck. I expect that I'm going to be disrespected. And I expect that I'm going to be abused in some way. And it took a really long time to get out of that mindset and to really believe that I deserve respect and I deserve to feel good and happy on my wedding day, including in the process of planning the wedding. So if you do not feel comfortable with a venue, if you do not feel comfortable with a vendor, you do not have to go with that person. Your worth is so much more than that. So please learn from my mistakes, learn early that you don't have to settle. Thank you so much for your time on this video. I really appreciate the opportunity to get to share this joy in my life with you, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thanks so much.